Hi everyone. Today's topic is pulmonary circulation. So, what is pulmonary? It is related to the lungs, and circulation is nothing but the blood flowing in it. So, we will be dealing with the pulmonary blood flow and the pulmonary circulation in this topic. So, in pulmonary blood flow, we will see what are the blood vessels which are flowing in the lungs. So, these are nothing but your pulmonary artery and pulmonary veins. You also have bronchial artery, bronchial veins. So we will mainly concentrate on three things here: pulmonary artery, bronchial artery, and physiological shunt. So let's concentrate on pulmonary artery. What pulmonary artery does? It carries deoxygenated blood from the heart to the lungs. What it does, it carries deoxygenated blood from the heart to the lungs. Okay, so we will see from where it arises and from where it. So what we see here, we see this is the right atrium. This is just a schematic diagram of our heart. This is the systemic circulation. This is the, suppose this is the lungs. So this is the right atrium. This is the right ventricle, left atrium, left ventricle. This is your lungs, and these are your organs. So what happens? The the deoxygenated blood from the organs goes towards the right atrium. It drains into the right atrium, and from there it goes to the right ventricle. From right ventricle to this artery, it goes to the lung. Now, what is this artery? This is your pulmonary artery. Okay. Now, from the it, blood gets filtered, it gets oxygenated, and it drains into the pulmonary veins. Okay, from pulmonary veins, it drains into the left atrium. From the left atrium, it goes to the left ventricle, and finally, it goes to the organ, to the aorta. Okay, so this is how the circulation works. This is your systemic circulation. This will be your systemic circulation is nothing but the blood flowing through the organs, and this will be your pulmonary circulation. Okay, the blood flowing in the lungs, and this will be your cardiac, that is in the heart. So, what we'll see now is from here, right atrium. We'll see that the deoxygenated blood are coming from the systemic circulation and draining into the right atrium. The deoxygenated blood which is coming from the systemic circulation is draining into the right atrium. It then goes to the right ventricle. Okay. Now from this you can see it goes to the pulmonary artery, the lungs. Now what happens? in the pulmonary artery is that it divides into two branches, left and right. Okay, left branch and right branch. Left branch goes to the left lung, right branch goes to the right lung. Okay, so what happens? These two branches, along with the primary bronchi. Okay, primary bronchi we saw in the last class. The trachea divides into two branches, main bronchi, then again it divides into primary, secondary, tertiary. So this branches along with the primary bronchi enters into the lung. Okay. Now in the lung, it divides into further small vessels, and form the capillary plexus. Okay. It forms the capillary plexus. Okay, so what we saw till now, the deoxygenated blood comes to the right atrium, it goes to the right ventricle through the wall which is present here. Now it drains into the pulmonary artery. It divides into two branches. It again joins with the primary bronchi and enters the lungs. Now these branches in the lungs divide into small vessels and form the capillary plexus. Okay. Now what happens? The blood in the capillary plexus. Now what happens? It drains to the. This is what pulmonary vein into the right atrium. Okay, into the left atrium. It drains into the left atrium, and it again goes to the left ventricle and to the aorta into the systemic circulation. Where systemic circulation again it gives the deoxygenated blood. So this cycle continues. Okay. So what happens when the blood which get oxygenated from the lungs drain into the pulmonary vessels, pulmonary vein, it drains into the left atrium, goes to the left ventricle, then to the right, to the aorta, it goes to the systemic circulation, and from there the deoxygenated blood again comes to the right atrium, and this process again happens. Okay. So this was about the pulmonary atrium. Now we'll see about the bronchial artery. Next, we'll see the bronchial artery. So this bronchial artery, from where it arises? It arises from descending thoracic aorta. Okay, it arises from the descending thoracic aorta. What is that descending thoracic aorta? This aorta, it has three parts: the ascending part, the aortic arch, and the descending part. So this aorta is like this. This part is the ascending part. This is your aortic arch, and this is your descending part. Okay. And this aortic arch gives into smaller branches. So this bronchial artery, it originates from this descending part of the thoracic aorta. Now what it does, bronchial artery, what it does, it supplies arterial blood to the various part of the lungs. Okay. What are the parts? It supplies to the visceral pleura, to the lung stroma, the pulmonary lymph nodes, the bronchi. Okay. So this bronchial artery supplies to the vestral pleura. We saw in last class there are two types of pleura, the vestral and parietal. So it supplies the vestral pleura. The lung stroma, it is nothing but the stroma or the matrix, the tissue which the lungs is made up of. It supplies to that. The lymph nodes which are present around the lungs, those are called pulmonary lymph nodes and the bronchi. Okay. So this bronchial artery supplies to these parts. Now we'll see the division of bronchial artery. So bronchial artery, it arises from descending thoracic aorta. Then it supplies to the various parts we saw: the lung stroma, the lymph nodes, the bronchi, the pleura. From there, the deoxygenated blood, the deoxygenated blood or the venous blood. Okay, the deoxygenated or the venous blood is taken up by bronchial vein. Okay, bronchial vein is taken up by bronchial vein, but this bronchial vein divides into two parts. Okay, divides into two parts: the right one and the left one. So, what is the right one? It is known as superior hemiazygous vein, and the left one is known as superior azygous vein. Okay, so the bronchial vein divides into two parts, right and left. Right one is superior hemiazygous vein, left is a superior azygous vein. Okay, it is also known as. So I will explain again this part. So the bronchial artery, what it does, it provides oxygenated blood to the lungs. Oxygenated means your arterial blood. Okay. So the bronchial artery provides arterial blood to the lungs. We saw that is your lung stroma, the vestral pleura, the connective tissue, and the bronchi. Okay. So from the lungs, it takes the venous blood goes to the bronchial vein. Okay. Now bronchial vein, what it takes? The bronchial vein divides into two branches, right and left bronchial vein. Right bronchial vein goes to the superior azygous vein, and the left bronchial vein goes to the superior hemiazygous vein or left superior intercostal vein. Okay. So once again, I'll tell. Bronchial artery carries the arterial blood to the lung. From the lungs, the venous blood is carried by bronchial vein, and it divides into two branches, right and left branches, right bronchial vein and the left bronchial vein. The right bronchial vein goes to the superior azygous vein, and the left bronchial vein goes to the superior hemiazygous or left superior intercostal vein. So okay, this was your bronchial circulation. This comes under your bronchial circulation. Bronchial circulation, that is bronchial artery, bronchial vein. So, but lastly, what happens? The final blood from the bronchial vein is finally drained by your pulmonary vein. Okay. So now we will see the next part, that is physiological shunt. So, what is physiological shunt? It is nothing but the mixture of venous blood with the arterial blood. Physiological shunt is the mixing of the venous blood with the arterial blood. Now, how this happens? For this, I'll give you one example. Okay. So, suppose these are the alveoli. Okay. This is your capillary. As you have seen in lungs, that they are in close proximity in the lungs. That is the alveoli and the capillaries are closely attached. So what we know that when the deoxygenated blood containing the carbon dioxide goes to the alveoli, it releases the carbon dioxide there and takes up the oxygenated blood, that is the oxygen containing blood, and travels to the systemic circulation. Okay, deoxygenated blood releases the carbon dioxide in the alveoli, takes up the oxygen, and moves. This happens in all the portion of the lung. Okay, so this is the normal phenomenon. Now suppose what happens if these two alveoli don't function. Okay, out of those four, these two don't function, or in the lungs, if 50% of the alveoli won't function, what will happen? That the oxygen here we are getting is your oxygenated blood. So the blood we are getting is the oxygenated one. But here the deoxygenated blood is not getting oxygenated. So it is still remaining deoxygenated. Now what will happen if these two blood mix? What will happen? It will remain impure. That is not completely oxygenated. So what will happen? These lungs does not filter properly, does not oxygenate the blood properly. On this pulmonary vessel will carry deoxygenated blood to the left atrium. Now what will happen there? There will be a mixing of arterial and venous blood, that is oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. So it will go to systemic circulation and it becomes problems. So I hope you got some idea about what is physiological shunt. Now what we'll see what is venous admixture, or what are the causes, what is the result of this physiological shunt. Okay, so now we see that what is a normal function. Normal function is for the blood in the lungs to take up the oxygen to give the carbon dioxide to the alveoli, and this is the normal process that happens. Now what is happening in physiological shunt? Opposite, that it is not taking the oxygen from the alveoli and not giving up carbon dioxide. Okay, so the blood is staying remaining deoxygenated. What is venous admixture? It is nothing but a result of physiological shunt. That is, it is the same. It is a mixture of venous blood with the arterial blood. Okay. Now the venous admixture, what will happen is that the blood is deoxygenated now. Okay. As we saw, the blood is deoxygenated now. Now the fraction of the blood, okay, which is deoxygenated. Here we have a different term for this. It is known as this is known as your wasted blood. So what is wasted blood? When in physiological shunt, the mixing of the venous and the arterial blood is happening. So whatever the blood that is remaining deoxygenated, that is not getting oxygenated, that fraction of blood is known as your wasted blood. Okay. So in normal physiological condition, we see only 1 to 2% of this physiological shunt in the normal individuals. Okay, only 1 to 2%. Maximum it can go to 5% in normal healthy individual. But if the physiological shunt is like 10 to 30%, then it is a pathological condition. So what are the pathological conditions in which we see this shunt? we call it as pulmonary shunt. So what are the conditions? These conditions are your acute pulmonary infection. Any infection in the lung can lead to this pulmonary shunt, the abnormal shunt, and your bronchiectasis. Bronchiectasis, it is nothing but the dilatation of the bronchi. Means it is an abnormal dilatation of the bronchi which can create problem, and this happens due to inflammation. So these are your pathological conditions related to the lung. Now related to the heart, there is AV malformations, arteriovenous malformation. This is nothing but the septa. It is related to the septa which is present between the two sides of the lung. So these are of a few types, mainly arterial septal defect and the venous septal defect. So what happens is that the septa between the ventricles and the artericles does not close properly. So the arterial and the ventricle blood or the oxygenated blood mixes and it can create some problems. Your cardiac conditions and these are your pulmonary condition. Okay. So now we will see what is a comparison between physiological shunt and physiological dead space. Physiological shunt and physiological dead space. Okay. What is physiological shunt? Just now we saw. Okay. That is a mixing of arterial blood with the venous blood. And what we get from this shunt is that wasted blood. Okay, from there we are getting that wasted blood due to venous adduction, and from physiological dead space we get wasted air. Okay, this we'll see later what is dead space. I just give an overview. It is the space in the lungs which is not getting proper perfusion of proper blood supply for the proper oxygenation. Okay, means there is a ventilation, but there is not proper blood supply. Okay, so we can say that physiological shunt and physiological dead space are analogous. Okay, that is they are comparable. That is physiological shunt are wasted blood, physiological dead space as wasted air. Okay, now this physiological shunt happens due to ventilation perfusion ratio mismatch. Okay, this is a little concept. Ventilation perfusion ratio mismatch. What is this? Ventilation is nothing but the amount of air which is supplying the blood to oxygenate it, and perfusion is the amount of blood which is supplying the alveolar. Okay, so the ratio between the ventilation and the perfusion is denoted as Q, is the ventilation perfusion ratio, and these physiological shunts happen due to mismatch. Okay, the shunt in the abnormal condition happens due to ventilation perfusion ratio mismatch. So, what is the normal value of this? What is the normal value of ventilation perfusion ratio? Oxygen in 1 liter of blood. Okay, ventilation perfusion ratio is the amount of oxygen in 1 liter of air and amount of oxygen in 1 liter of blood. So it is nearly 200 by 210, that is 0.95. So this is the normal ventilation perfusion ratio or fraction. So when there's any abnormality in this ratio, then there is your pulmonary shut. So we can define it as amount of oxygen which is needed to oxygenate 1 liter of blood. Okay. You have to tell me what is the normal cardiac output. Okay, the normal cardiac output. Okay. So you can comment in the comment section, and I hope you will find it. Now we will move to the next topic. Next topic is pulmonary blood flow. Okay. So in pulmonary blood flow, we will see the pulmonary blood vessels. Okay. The arteries and the veins of the lungs. Okay. So first point, they are thin. Okay. So the blood vessels is thin in your pulmonary circulation. Specifically, your pulmonary artery is 1/3 of the thickness of systemic aortic wall. So the pulmonary artery wall have 1/3 of thickness of the systemic aortic wall, and all the arteries and veins are thin. Next, they are highly elastic. They are highly elastic as they go through a lot of resistance of the air. Therefore, they have to be highly elastic. Third is the muscle layer. The smooth muscle is a little underdeveloped. Okay. This you can see as the muscle layer provides a lot of resistance. So the smooth muscle layer is little underdeveloped to minimize the resistance of the vessels. Fourth point is two arterioles also have a less muscle fibers. Okay, because of the same reasons to minimize the resistance, the true arterioles in the lungs have a very less muscle fibers. So what are the true arterioles? True arterioles arterioles which are having all the layers. What an arteriole is having, but in lungs it has very less muscle fibers. Now the fifth point. So now what happens? The pulmonary vascular system is a low pressure bed. It is a low pressure bed or a low pressure system. Means the blood pressure which is present in the pulmonary veins vessels are very less pressure. That is pulmonary artery and pulmonary veins both are very less pressure compared to the systemic vessels. Like pulmonary artery has 1/10 of less pressure than the systemic arteries. Next is your uh, the pulmonary artery. As we have seen, it supplies the deoxygenated blood, and the pulmonary vein supplies the oxygenated blood. Okay. What we see in other parts of the body is the arteries usually supply the oxygenated blood, and the veins usually supply the deoxygenated blood. Okay, like in systemic circulation. But in pulmonary circulation, the pulmonary artery supplies the deoxygenated blood, and the pulmonary vein supplies the oxygenated blood. So this is opposite in this case of pulmonary vessels. So pulmonary artery is the only artery which is carrying venous blood, and pulmonary vein is the only vein which is carrying oxygenated blood in our. The next point. Next point is your vascular resistance. So the vascular resistance offered by these vessels, the pulmonary artery and vessels, veins, is very less compared to the systemic arteries and veins. And last point is your physiological shunt. So physiological shunt is present in this system. So what are the points we saw in pulmonary blood vessels? They are thin, they are highly elastic, the vascular resistance is very less, the smooth muscle fibers are very less in true arterioles as compared to the systemic arterioles. Also the arteries, the vessels generally have a very smooth muscle layer. It helps in decreasing the vascular resistance. As we can see in veins, the muscles, they don't have a very thick muscle layer, so as to decrease the vascular resistance. And the pulmonary circulation is a low pressure bed, that is the arterial pressure and the venous pressure in the pulmonary arteries and veins is very less compared to the systemic arteries and veins. Also, the physiological shunt is present here. Okay. Now let's see. Now you have a one question. Okay. You have to tell me what are the layers of the vessels. Okay. What are the layers of the vessels and what are they made up of? So I will tell you there are three layers present in the vessels, the arteries and the veins. So they are they have different names and they are made up of different material. So you have to tell me what are the layers and what are they made up of in the comment section. Okay. So the next thing we'll see the pulmonary blood. Pulmonary blood flow. So the pulmonary blood flow is same as a systemic. Each passes 5 liters of blood through it per minute. Okay, so it is the same in both the lungs. 5 liters per minute it filters, and each lung accommodates same amount of blood is accommodated by any other organs in our body. So now we'll see what is the blood pressure. Okay, as we saw that pulmonary circulation is a very less pressure system. So naturally the blood pressure will also be less. So in the pulmonary artery, the systolic blood pressure is seen as 25 mmHg. The diastolic is 10 mmHg. And the mean arterial pressure is 50 mmHg. Okay. The mean arterial pressure is calculated as 2/3 of diastolic pressure plus 1/3 of systemic blood pressure. So we'll get a 10 mmHg. Okay. So instead of all these, the pulmonary vessels, we have a capillary pressure also. Okay. We have the capillary pressure. It is nothing but the pressure present in the capillaries. The amount of pressure that the blood exists on the walls of capillary is a capillary pressure. So this capillary pressure is just sufficient enough to let the oxygen exchange happen. Okay, it is sufficient enough to cause the exchange of gases between the blood. So now there is another question. You have to tell me what is the amount, what is the value of this capillary pressure. So I'll tell again, capillary pressure is nothing but the pressure present in the blood, and you have to tell me what is the amount of the capillary pressure in the lungs. Okay. We'll move on to the next topic. Next, measurement of blood flow. Okay, it is the measurement of the blood flow to the various vessels of the lungs. So how it is measured? It is the amount of blood flow in the lungs is calculated as, it is the amount of oxygen. It is the amount of oxygen which is flowing in the lungs. It is calculated as amount of blood in the lungs into the arteriovenous difference. Arteriovenous difference of oxygen. So this is the formula of calculating the amount of oxygen flow in the lungs. This you will read the circulatory chapter also. This is known as the Fick's principle. How it is done? It is an invasive procedure. That is, the catheter is inserted into the vein, and these things are measured. So it comes approximately 250 ml. Okay, as the amount of blood in the lungs, as you know, it is 5 liters per minute. So the amount of oxygen flow in the lungs comes to 250 per minute. Now, what is the arteriovenous difference of oxygen in the blood? That you will tell me. Okay, you have to tell me the arteriovenous difference of oxygen in the comment section. So now we'll see the next topic. So the last topic we will deal here is factors regulating the pulmonary blood flow. Okay, we'll see here what are the factors which regulate the pulmonary blood flow or the pulmonary circulation. So here are 5 factors. This is your cardiac output, the chemical factors, the nervous factors, peripheral resistance, and lastly your gravity or hydrostatic pressure. So what are the factors which affect the pulmonary blood flow? Cardiac output, chemical factor, nervous factor, peripheral resistance, and your gravity or hydrostatic pressure. So how cardiac output affects is it is directly proportional to the pulmonary blood flow. Okay, it is directly proportional. What does it mean? That as the cardiac output increases, the pulmonary blood flow will also increase. Okay, cardiac output is nothing but the multiplication of heart rate into stroke volume. Okay. All these you will be learning in the chapter of circulation. So cardiac output is the heart rate into the stroke volume. So as we increase the cardiac output, the pulmonary blood flow will increase. Now, now we will see the vascular resistance. So vascular resistance or peripheral resistance, we can write it as vascular resistance. Vascular resistance is nothing but the resistance which is offered by the blood vessels to the blood flowing in it. So it is inversely proportional to the pulmonary blood flow. So as we increase the vascular resistance, the pulmonary blood flow will decrease. And decrease. Okay. Now, how does this work? Is that these vascular resistance actually differs in different phases. Okay, like in inspiration, and expiration. So last as we saw, there are two phases, inspiration and expiration. In inspiration, what happens is that the intrathoracic pressure, it decreases, and in expiration, as we know, the intrathoracic pressure will increase. Okay. The inspiration, the intrathoracic pressure will decrease. What this will do? This will okay. So what this will do? Huh. So what this will do? This will cause vasodilatation. This is called vasodilatation, or the blood vessels will distend or dilate. The blood vessels will dilate, and this will cause decrease in the vascular resistance. And naturally, as it is inversely proportional to the pulmonary blood flow, so the pulmonary blood flow will increase. And same opposite thing happens in expiration. The interthoracic pressure will increase. This will cause contraction of the blood vessels. Now, this will increase the vascular resistance, and this vascular resistance will cause decrease in the pulmonary blood flow. So you understand now how vascular resistance is inversely proportional to the pulmonary blood flow. In inspiration, the pulmonary blood flow increases. In expiration, the pulmonary blood flow will decrease. Okay. Now, what is the nervous factor we see? So, in experimental conditions, what we saw that sympathetic stimulation, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. Okay. So the sympathetic stimulation will increase the pulmonary blood flow, and the parasympathetic will decrease the pulmonary blood flow. Okay. So this is seen in experimental condition, but in normal physiological condition, there is no such evidence that the nervous factors will have any role in regulating the pulmonary blood flow. So in chemical factors, we see that in hypoxia condition, that is when oxygen decreases and in carbon dioxide increases, we see that the pulmonary blood flow will increase. Okay, the pulmonary blood flow will increase. So what happens in hypoxia and hypercapnia, that is when carbon dioxide increases, the pulmonary blood flow will increase. Okay. So now, yeah, also in exercise induced hypoxia. Me too. भैया आवाज आ रहा है. So in chemical factors, what we will see is that in when there is hypoxia, that is oxygen decreases, and the carbon dioxide increases, that is hypercapnia happens, the pulmonary blood flow will increase. Okay, so that these things will call vasoconstriction. This will increase the vascular resistance, and that's why this will increase the pulmonary blood flow. Okay, so we also see that in exercise there is oxygen decrease, that is hypoxia happens. Okay, in physiological condition, exercise is physiological condition. So oxygen decrease, there is an exercise induced hypoxia. Okay, in that condition also the pulmonary blood flow will increase because the oxygen is decreasing and the carbon dioxide is increasing. So the last topic, the gravity or hydrostatic pressure. So how gravity and hydrostatic pressure affects, we'll see here. So suppose this is your lungs. We divide that into three portions, okay? Zone 1, Zone 2, Zone 3. This is your apical portion. Apical. This is your mid portion. and this is your lower portion. Okay. So what are these zone 1, zone 2, zone 3? Normally, what happens in standing position due to gravitational force, the blood pressure is mainly in it is mainly high in the lower portion of our body. Okay, it is low in the portion above our heart. Okay, in the upper part it is low. So this same thing happens in our lung, that the blood pressure is high in the lower portion and it decreases as we move upward. So what happens in the apical portion? The arterial pressure, the arterial pressure is equal to the capillary pressure. That is the uh, blood flowing to the capillaries and the pressure already the blood present in the capillary, the pressure exerted by that is equal. So what will happen is that whenever the arterial pressure will decrease and the capillary pressure will increase, this causes the alveoli to collapse. Okay, what this will cause, whenever the arterial pressure will decrease and the capillary pressure will increase, it will cause the alveoli to collapse. The alveoli will collapse. So what this collapse will happen, there will be no exchange of any oxygen or any blood to this area. Okay, there will be no oxygen, there will be no exchange of gases. So that is why this is called as zone of zero blood flow. It is known as zone of zero blood flow. Okay, no exchange of gases is happening here. Now, what is this happening when there is zero blood flow? So, what the ventilation perfusion ratio will increase. That is, ventilation is present, but the perfusion will be none. Okay, means the air will be getting transferred there, but the blood supply is nil there. What this will cause? This will cause the tubercle bacteria. The tubercle bacteria will thrive there, and that can lead to TB. That is tuberculosis. Why tubercle bacilli? Because tubercle bacilli is highly anaerobic. It needs high amount of oxygen to survive. So it gets an opportunistic chance here to thrive into this high that is a vital part. That's why TB is the most common. It is most common happened in the apical portion. Now, what happens in the mid portion? In mid portion, what happens is that during systole the pressure will increase and during diastole the pressure will decrease. Okay, so it depends on our blood pressure. The pressure here is less than the systolic blood pressure, but it is more than the diastolic blood pressure. So what will happen? The pressure increases in the systole, decreases in the diastole. So there is an intermittent flow. Okay, it is known as intermittent blood flow. It is a zone of intermittent blood flow. That is, the blood flow can be there or cannot be there. Okay. Now the lower portion, this is known as zone of continuous blood flow. That is, the blood flow never stops there. It is continuously flowing. Okay. So for confusion, the apical portion zone 1 has no blood flow, zero blood flow. The mid portion of the zone 2 has intermittent blood flow, and the lower portion zone 3 has a continuous blood flow. So the ventilation perfusion ratio we will see it is high in the case of apical. In the mid portion, it is normal. It is in the normal level, and in the lower portion, it is low. Okay. So as it is low, there is a continuous supply of blood pressure. So before ending it, I'll ask you the last question of this discussion. You have to tell me what is the obligatory annuals. Okay. You have to tell me what are the obligatory anaerobes. You have to give some examples of it. So you write that in the comment section below. So obligatory anaerobe, as we saw the tubercle bacteria, it is highly obligatory aerobe. Sorry. So tubercle obligatory aerobe. We saw tubercle bacteria. It is highly aerobic. It is high at oxygen to thrive. It needs high oxygen to thrive. So those bacteria which needs high oxygen to thrive is your aerobe. That is, it can't survive without the oxygen. So one example is the tubercle bacteria. Now you have to give me what are other examples. So you can comment in the comment section below. So this is the end of this discussion. Next class we'll see the mechanics of respiration. Till then, take care and bye.